A notification lands on your phone at 9:40 on a Sunday morning. It's not a fraud alert. It's not a warning about a suspicious charge. It's a simple, almost boring line of text. The email address on your account has been updated. No dollar amount. No transaction. No dramatic language at all. Most people glance at it, assume it's some kind of routine system message, maybe left over from updating an app, and go back to their coffee. I want to tell you plainly before we go any further that this specific alert, more than almost any other message your bank can send you, means someone else is already inside your account, right now, and they just did the one thing that criminals do first every single time to make sure you never find out. Account takeover fraud, the specific category this alert belongs to, resulted in more than $15 billion in reported losses across the country last year, up sharply from the year before, and reports of it filed through official fraud channels rose by more than a third in that same period. That growth isn't slowing down, and a meaningful share of it depends entirely on the one small, quiet step I'm about to walk you through. A step that most people never learn to recognize because it doesn't announce itself the way a scam call or a threatening email does. I'm Henry Collins. Every week on this channel, I break down exactly how scams and account fraud actually work, mechanically, so you can recognize the moment it's happening rather than only understanding it afterward. Today, I want to focus on one specific alert, the contact information change notification, because federal investigators and banking security teams consistently point to it as one of the earliest and most reliable signs that someone has already gained access to your account, and because almost nobody has ever had it explained to them why this particular alert matters more than the ones that sound far more alarming. Here's the mechanism, and once you understand it, you'll never look at this notification the same way again. When a criminal successfully breaks into your online banking, whether through a phishing email, a fake login page, stolen credentials bought off a data breach, or a phone call that talked you into reading back a security code, they don't immediately start moving money. That would be the obvious move, and it's actually the second thing they do, not the first. The first thing, almost universally, is to change the contact information on file, your email address, your phone number, sometimes your mailing address. Security researchers who study these takeovers describe this as close to a universal first step across nearly every kind of intrusion they track, regardless of how the criminal originally got in. Why does that happen first, before a single dollar moves? Because every fraud alert your bank would ever send you, the suspicious login detected message, the large withdrawal warning, the new payee added notice, every single one of those alerts goes to whatever email address and phone number are currently on file. If a criminal changes that contact information the moment they get in, every alert your bank generates from that point forward goes straight to them, not you. You become, for practical purposes, invisible to your own bank's warning system. They've locked the front door from the inside and taken your only copy of the key. Some of the more sophisticated operations go a step further, setting up automatic forwarding rules on a compromised email account specifically, so that even password reset messages route straight to them, meaning they can lock you out of your own email at the same moment they lock you out of your bank, using one against the other in a single coordinated motion. Think about what that actually means for the timeline of a takeover. There's a narrow window, sometimes minutes, sometimes a few hours, between the moment a criminal gains access and the moment they finish rerouting your contact information to themselves. During that window, and only during that window, your bank is still capable of reaching the real you. Once that window closes, you are effectively locked out of your own alert system while someone else operates freely inside your account. And the very first sign most victims get that anything is wrong is a bounced check, a declined card, or a phone call to customer service that ends with the confusing discovery that the email and phone number on file aren't yours anymore. This is exactly why federal banking security guidance treats an unexpected contact information change as one of the highest priority warning signs there is, ranked alongside unrecognized logins and unfamiliar devices, well above a lot of alerts that sound scarier on the surface. A notification about a large purchase or a big withdrawal is serious, certainly, but it's also something you can dispute after the fact, something your bank's fraud department has real tools to investigate and often reverse. A contact information change isn't really about money at all. It's about whether you, the actual account holder, remain capable of hearing from your bank when something goes wrong afterward. Lose that, and every subsequent alert, no matter how serious, goes to the wrong person. And the length of time before you personally discover anything is wrong stretches from minutes into days. Let me walk you through how this actually played out for a man named Gerald, 71, a retired postal worker outside Tulsa who'd banked online for years without a single problem, comfortable enough with the routine that he checked his balance most mornings the same way he checked the weather. On a Thursday, Gerald clicked what looked like a legitimate email from his bank, warning about a temporary hold on his debit card, asking him to log in and confirm his identity to lift it. The page looked exactly like his bank's real login screen, down to the logo and the color scheme, because it was a nearly perfect copy hosted on a look-alike web address he never thought to check, one letter different from the real thing, easy to miss on a phone screen at a glance. He typed in his username and password, the page reloaded with a spinning wheel for a few seconds, and then redirected him to the real bank's actual website, which struck him as odd, but not alarming enough to investigate further. He assumed the hold had been lifted and went about his day, running errands, calling his sister, nothing about the rest of that Thursday feeling any different from any other. What actually happened in those few seconds was that his real login credentials had just been captured and used in real time by someone waiting on the other end of that fake page to log into his actual account from a different device entirely, likely somewhere far from Tulsa. Within about 4 minutes before Gerald had even closed his laptop, the email address on his account had been changed to one he'd never seen, and his phone number had been swapped to a number in a different area code. His bank did send an alert about that change, a routine, calmly worded notice confirming the contact information update. It arrived within seconds of the change itself, but by then it was already going to the wrong inbox. Gerald never saw it, because the inbox it landed in no longer belonged to him in any sense his bank system could recognize. Over the following 2 days, while Gerald went about an entirely ordinary weekend, unaware anything had happened at all, mowing his lawn, going to church, calling his sister back to finish their conversation from Thursday, roughly $9,000 moved out of his savings account in a series of transfers, each one triggering a confirmation alert that landed safely in an inbox that had never belonged to him. Gerald didn't find out until the following Tuesday, when he tried to log in himself to check on a scheduled bill payment and discovered his password no longer worked. When he called his bank's customer service line, the representative pulled up his account and gently asked him to confirm the phone number on file, reading back a number Gerald had never owned in his life. That single sentence, hearing an unfamiliar phone number read back to him as his own, was the first moment Gerald understood that something had gone seriously wrong. 4 full days after the actual takeover had already happened, and roughly 4 days longer than it needed to be, had that first quiet notification simply reached him instead of a stranger. I want you to notice something about Gerald's story, because it's the detail that makes this particular scam so dangerous compared to almost everything else I cover on this channel. Gerald wasn't reckless. He didn't hand a code to a stranger over the phone, and he didn't send money to anyone directly. He clicked one link on one ordinary Thursday, and from that single click, every subsequent safeguard his bank had built specifically to protect him, every alert, every warning, every notification, got quietly redirected to someone else before it could ever do its job. The technology meant to protect him worked exactly as designed. It just wasn't protecting him anymore. Comment down below if you've ever gotten a contact information change alert and genuinely couldn't remember whether you were the one who made that change or not. Because I think a lot of people have brushed past exactly this moment without realizing how much weight it was actually carrying. It's worth noting, too, that a legitimate contact update, one you actually make yourself, updating your phone number after switching carriers or your address after moving, will still trigger this exact same alert. That's not a contradiction, and it doesn't mean the alert is unreliable. It simply means the appropriate first response every single time this notification arrives is to pause and ask yourself honestly whether you were the one who made the change, rather than assuming either way. If you did make it, there's nothing more to do. If you didn't, or if you're even slightly unsure, the response from here forward should be exactly the same as Gerald's situation demanded. I also want to mention a second related scenario, because it shows how this same principle extends beyond banking specifically. The exact same pattern shows up with email providers, and it matters here because email is so often the master key that unlocks everything else. If you ever receive a notification that a forwarding rule has been added to your email account, sending copies of your messages to an address you don't recognize, treat that with the same urgency as a bank contact change, because it serves the identical purpose. A criminal who sets up silent forwarding on your email can watch every password reset, every security code, and every bank notification that passes through your inbox without you ever noticing a thing, sometimes for weeks, since a forwarding rule doesn't stop your own copy of the email from arriving normally. Check your email's forwarding settings occasionally, the same way you'd check the locks on your doors, and if you ever see a rule you didn't create, remove it immediately and change your email password before doing anything else. So here's what I want you to do, and I want to walk through this in the order that actually matters, because with this specific alert, speed determines almost everything about how the story ends. The moment you receive any notification about your contact information changing, your email, your phone number, your mailing address, and you did not personally make that change, treat it as an active, ongoing emergency rather than something to investigate later in the day. This is not a get-to-it this evening situation. Every minute that passes after that alert is a minute a criminal may still have active access to your account, potentially still moving money as you're reading this. Set aside whatever you're doing, the way you would if a smoke alarm went off in your own kitchen, because the underlying urgency is genuinely comparable. Call your bank immediately, using the number on the back of your physical card, never a number from any email or text, and tell them plainly that your contact information was changed without your authorization, and that you believe your account has been compromised right now, in the present tense, not as a past event to review. The specific phrase, "I believe my account is currently compromised," tends to route your call faster through a bank's phone system than a vaguer complaint about a confusing notification. Ask your bank, directly and specifically, to lock or freeze the account immediately while they investigate, rather than simply flagging it for a later review. Banks generally have the ability to place an immediate hold on outgoing transfers the moment a takeover is reported. And this single action is often the difference between a takeover that costs a few $100s and one that costs thousands, because it closes the door while an investigation happens rather than leaving it open in the meantime. Don't accept a representative's suggestion to simply monitor the situation for now. Insist on the freeze first and ask questions afterward. Once the account itself is secured, change your password immediately. And if you use that same password anywhere else, on any other account, email, shopping sites, anything at all, change it there too. Since a stolen banking password is very often a password that's been reused somewhere else as well. And criminals who successfully steal one set of credentials frequently test them against other financial and email accounts within hours of the initial breach. If your bank offers two-factor authentication using an authenticator app rather than a text message, this is a good moment to switch to it. Since a criminal who's already compromised your phone number through a separate scheme has an easier time intercepting a text code than a code generated inside an app you physically hold on your own device. Ask your bank specifically whether any other contact information changes were made that you haven't yet noticed, since criminals sometimes update more than one field at once, an email and a phone number and a mailing address all in the same session. And it's easy to catch one change while missing another sitting quietly in a different part of your profile, waiting to redirect a future alert the same way the first one already did. File a report with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center at IC3.gov, including the words account takeover in your description, since this specific phrasing helps route your report to the investigators actively tracking this exact pattern of fraud nationally. If you clicked a link or entered credentials on a page you now believe was fraudulent, mention that specifically, since it helps investigators trace the broader phishing operation behind it, not just your individual case, and every detailed report adds to the pattern that eventually connects one victim's experience to dozens or hundreds of others hit by the same operation. Check whether the same username and password combination was used anywhere else, and if it was, assume those accounts may be at risk too. Since criminals who successfully steal one set of credentials frequently test them against other financial and email accounts within hours of the initial breach, hoping you've reused the same password out of convenience the way most people understandably do a password manager, while it sounds like an extra piece of technology to learn, solves this specific problem permanently by generating a different password for every account you have, so that one stolen password can never unlock anything beyond the single account it was stolen from. And finally, going forward, treat any email asking you to log in and confirm your identity or verify your account with total suspicion, regardless of how urgent or official it looks, and regardless of what kind of hold or restriction it claims to be lifting. If you ever feel genuinely uncertain whether a message from your bank is real, don't click anything inside it at all. Open a new browser tab yourself, type in your bank's actual web address from memory or from a bookmark you set up in advance, and log in directly that way. A real hold on your card, if one ever genuinely exists, will still be sitting there waiting for you when you log in through your own front door instead of a door someone else built and is holding open for you. I want to say one more thing about why this particular alert deserves more respect than people tend to give it, because I think it explains something important about how modern fraud actually works. For years, the advice around bank security focused almost entirely on protecting your money directly, your card number, your account number, your balance. That advice still matters, but it misses something increasingly central to how account takeover actually happens today. The real target in a lot of these schemes isn't your money on the first move. It's your bank's ability to talk to you. Once a criminal owns that channel, even briefly, everything downstream becomes almost frictionless for them and almost invisible to you. A contact information change isn't a side effect of the crime. In cases like Gerald's, it is the crime, the single action that determines whether everything that follows gets caught in minutes or discovered days later after the damage is already sitting in someone else's account on the other side of the country. I also think it's worth understanding why banks bother sending this particular alert at all, given how routine and unthreatening it's designed to sound. Banking security teams know exactly how significant a contact information change is, which is precisely why it triggers an automatic notification in the first place, the same way a smoke detector triggers on the earliest wisp of smoke rather than waiting for visible flames. The problem isn't that banks fail to flag this moment. It's that the flag itself is worded so calmly, so administratively, that it reads to most customers as background noise rather than the loudest possible alarm their account can ring. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember that the plainest sounding notification your bank sends is very often protecting the single most important thing standing between you and a criminal, which is simply your bank's ability to reach the real you when something goes wrong. There's also a broader lesson here about how you set up your accounts in the first place, worth mentioning briefly since it touches everything I've described today. Consider using a dedicated email address, one you use only for financial accounts and nothing else, not shopping, not social media, not newsletters. An email address that never appears anywhere else is far less likely to turn up in an unrelated data breach, which means the credentials tied to your most sensitive accounts stay cleaner and harder to compromise in the first place. It's a small extra step to set up, taking maybe 20 minutes total across all your financial accounts, and it quietly reduces the odds that a Gerald-style situation ever gets the chance to start. I want to leave you with something that reframes how you should think about your own bank alerts from here forward. Most people scan their notifications for the scary-sounding ones, a big withdrawal, a declined card, a suspicious charge, and skim right past the quiet, administrative-sounding ones without a second thought. I'd ask you to flip that instinct, at least for this one specific message. The alert that looks the most boring, the plainest, most bureaucratic-sounding notification your bank ever sends you, your contact information has been updated, deserves the fastest, most serious response of anything in your inbox, precisely because it's the one message specifically designed by whoever sent it to be the last one you ever actually see. Gerald is back online now, his accounts secured, his passwords rebuilt from scratch across every service he uses, and most of the $9,000 was eventually recovered through his bank's fraud investigation, though it took months rather than days to get there. He told me the thing that stuck with him most wasn't the money itself. It was realizing that the actual warning had arrived right on schedule, exactly the way it was supposed to, and had simply been read by someone else before he ever got the chance. That's the part I want you to carry away from his story more than any other detail. The system worked. It just wasn't working for him anymore. And the only thing that could have changed that was noticing, in the moment, that a boring-sounding notification was the loudest alarm his bank knew how to ring. I'm Henry Collins. Thank you for listening.